Well, welcome back, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the program so far. It's definitely a packed day with lots of exciting topics and things that you'll want to hear about. And this next session is no exception to that. Chris Kelly has been engaging audiences across the country. In fact, I think he just drove in from St. Louis yesterday, speaking to the Plain Giving group down there. So he started as a professional opera singer. With his debut was right in Michigan at the Michigan Opera Theater in Detroit. So that explains his comfort in front of large audiences. He spent time as a senior philanthropic consultant with Merrill Lynch, and then 14 years at Comerica as president of the Comerica Charitable Trust and their Legacy Foundation. Chris is now vice president and planned giving product specialist for PNC Institutional Asset Management. He's been heavily involved in our industry for years as a member of the PPP National Board, past president of this group, currently serving on the board. And Chris continues to educate clients and our community of the benefits of leaving a legacy. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, Chris Kelly.
Actually, what he meant was Chris continues to be educated by his colleagues and peers. So once again, thank you. And as far as being comfortable in a room, it's one thing to be on an opera stage. You can fake it there. But when you're in a room like this with ringers and people who know what they're doing, I'm following the Dial commercial. I'm trying not to let you see me sweat. So what we want to talk about today is, what do we do when we have that high net worth individual or household? And I think all of you know me well enough that you know that when I talk about gift planner, that's all of us. It is a team sport. It is the legal community. It is the tax community. It is the financial community. It is the nonprofit, and it is our donor. So we've got a large team that we can draw from as far as gaining knowledge, sharing knowledge, putting the right thing in place, because good philanthropy is a team sport. Let's get started. I thought this was important information because if you're tired, now you know why. We were pretty busy, and we continue to be busy. And you can see, now these are the 2014 facts, and as always, in philanthropy, we're always a little bit behind schedule because we're always busy. But what ended up happening was, instead of $358 billion being raised for nonprofit causes, it ended up being about $370 billion. So now you know why you're tired. A lot of money, a lot of wonderful causes, a lot of opportunity with donors. This is another pie chart that I think we need to be thoughtful of, and that's, where is this money coming from? Now, if you look, the biggest part of this, by the way, I can't believe I finally made the big room. I feel like Wayne Newton up here. I made the big room. Okay, the individual donor, 72%. That's who we should be focusing on now, folks. Yes, grants and sponsorships are great. They can bring in a large number, but they're getting harder and harder to get. First of all, corporations, they still love us and they love our missions. But as we're going to talk about right now, corporate giving is always based on how things went in any given year. And if they haven't had a banner year, they are not going to be able to make the impact on our charitable missions the way they would like, because they have shareholders that they're responsible to as well. So it's not a reflection of they are not as involved in our missions, but if they don't have the dollars to share, it can't happen. Foundations. Interestingly enough, 15% of that other pie chart, but of that 15%, 47% of it came from individuals, private foundations, and donor funds. So who are these people? Individuals. That's who we are working with now. That's why we need to be on top of our game at all times. So between individual current giving, bequests, and those foundations and donor funds, it's actually 87% of the work that we did and continue to do. And that's why we need to think in terms of what are these people asking for? What is it they want us to know? And I want to go into the study. I'm going to skip this chart because, again, it just kind of reiterates what we just talked about. This is if you're not getting the point across, but again, I'm with ringers, so I'm not worried. Why are we charitable? This study was done and continues to go on, but this one was done by the U.S. Trust Company and U.S. Giving Foundation. They profiled over 300 of our colleague professionals. So this is the attorneys, the CPAs, the financial advisors, as well as philanthropic. By the way, where are my attorneys in the room? Okay, I'll behave. Tax planners? Okay, so the rest of us are all in the nonprofit. Anybody from the IRS? I always ask because if I say something, I don't want to be audited. All right, they were asked these kinds of questions. What do you think motivates your donors to contribute? First thing that came back was that my client, my donor, is passionate about a need or a cause. We know this. What's the first thing that happens when a donor contacts us or we make contact with a donor? They're talking about our mission and what about it touches them. This is important information for us to think about. No matter what the net worth of the donor is, that's the first calling card. They have a desire to give back. They feel they've been blessed, they've accumulated a comfortable wealth, if not a very impressive wealth, and now they feel that there's a responsibility to that wealth to share it and to make sure that they are having an impact. They have a desire to have a very positive impact on society or even on world issues. Think about it. And I've brought this up a million times, not just with our group here, but anywhere. When the tsunami hit, when the hurricane hit our country, what happened? $1.3 billion was raised in just a little over a week. That's a lot of money, which means people are passionate about helping those who aren't as fortunate as they are. But they need to know how to do it, and they need to feel that they're having an impact. Why do I bring that up? What else did we hear about that hurricane situation? Where did the money go? A lot of money was raised, and people were feeling that there were still individuals who were hurting, who weren't being pulled back up, and I gave, where's my impact? That's what all donors want to hear, but particularly high net worth donors. They want to see action. Not all high net worth donors necessarily need their name on the side of a building or even major recognition, but by Jiminy, they better know that if they're making that kind of a contribution, a major gift, that it is actually having an effect on the charitable mission. And they want to be able to at least point to our organizations and say, see that? We're part of that. They're family. And we all know family takes care of family. 30% of these folks are, of course, under the assumption that their client, now this is the professional advisor, their client wants to set up some sort of a family legacy. We know that as well. How many of our donors have actually said, I want you to meet my kids? Or more importantly, could you explain to my children why I'm making this gift so they don't feel like I don't love them anymore? Although that could be the case. Long and short of it is, I agree with this. It ties right into what we've already been talking about. We want to have an impact. We want to show that we are accomplishing something, and we want our families to understand that and to maybe pick up the mantle and continue. If not, find organizations and issues that are important to them. 46 of these professionals thought that it was all tax motivated, whether it was the charitable deduction or maybe avoiding the capital gain liability. Now, folks, let's be honest. I don't think anyone is ever going to say, I don't want a tax deduction, or I don't need to avoid capital gain. I'll give it to the government. If you mention capital gain in particular to my 91-year-old mother, I've said this a million times too, she will go apoplectic because she does not like capital gain. Doesn't mind paying her fair share of taxes, but when it comes to capital gain liability, do not bring that up to Mary Jane Kelly. She will have another stroke, and I can't afford that. So let's flip now. Let's talk about the actual donors. What did they say when they were asked these same kind of questions? Yes, they want to encourage the next generations about philanthropy and why it's important, how it carries on, if not family tradition and values, that it will carry on the family name, that we will maintain our place in society because we believe in these organizations and issues, and we put our money where our mouth is. Interestingly enough, we're also kind of mixing in the me generation. Remember them? The ones who think it's me, 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 me. Some of their kids are actually teaching them about philanthropy. So I don't care which generation does it, but it's an important message, and we need to make sure that we help them get the message out. They believe that they need to give because of their religious or spiritual beliefs. Now, I want to clear up a misconception. This does not mean that they are trying to buy their way into heaven. It doesn't work that way. But they believe in either their denomination or they believe in some of the organizations that are faith-based. And it reflects how they feel about their own spirituality and why it is important to use their disposable income or their accumulated wealth to share that message with their family, their friends, their community. So the faith-based is also extremely important to them. 22% do feel that wealth carries an obligation, that in order to really show appreciation for your own blessings and what you have been able to accumulate over your lifetime, you need to share it. You need to show others that you understand they might not have been as fortunate, but we are all one big happy family. We'll help each other. This is the one that I find most shocking. But if you were in Mitch and Jennifer's session, they affirmed this for me. In fact, I was like, quiet, quiet, quiet. I want to talk about that. Because they were asked. Doesn't that seem strange? What do? We are gift planners. No matter what part of our profession, we are gift planners. Do we think about the ask? I have heard colleagues in different parts of the country with different missions say, I'm really having a hard time because my planned giving committee or my development committee are very loyal. They show up to every meeting, but they don't want to ask for contributions. Then what are they doing on that committee? That's what we do. And it isn't always walking up to somebody and saying, how much is in your wallet? Can you just give that to me now? It's sitting down with someone and finding out, why are you involved with this organization? What is it about this organization that's important to you? My favorite ask, if you had the magic checkbook and you could accomplish anything for this organization, any part of our mission, what would you like to see happen? That's when our donor, no matter what their economic background is, can sit there and dream. They can think about what they would love to see happen and how your organization could make it a reality. Now, folks, we can work backward as a team. We can find the vehicle or vehicles that give our donor the power to make their charitable dreams a reality. That's what the ask is all about. And I honestly have said, truly, ask any of my colleagues, past or present, I am the guy who will walk into a board meeting and say, you know what, your posterior in a chair once a month is not a charitable gift. That's why you don't get a deduction for it. So you need to be more proactive. You need to be able to help development do their job. You don't have to do the planning, but how about introducing? How about recognizing potential opportunity in the high net worth donor category and bring them into a situation where those who do know how to make the ask can do it for you. That is a gift. We might not get a deduction for that one. After all, it's not our money, it's our friends. But it's still happening, it's still the cause, and it's still being accomplished. Here's another thing. 10% of these high net worth households did not say they were doing it for a tax deduction or they were doing it to diversify their portfolios and avoid capital gain. Interesting, isn't it? I have to tell you, 28 years ago when I started doing this, yes, folks, I started when I was 12 years old, as you can tell. But 28 years ago when I started this, I was one of the ones who were saying, oh, and you get a deduction, and oh my gosh, look at the capital gain liability you have in this part of your portfolio. We need to fix that. Why don't we bring in the philanthropic component? And that was okay at the time because a lot of people needed to understand all of the benefits of philanthropy. But we threw the baby out with the bathwater because I also would hear back from people, okay, they're very interested in doing a charitable remainder trust. They love the idea of the deduction, they love the idea of the diversification, but they've got a problem. They don't know where to give their money. So what do we do about that? So we weren't doing our jobs. It's all or nothing. We need to be able to say to these individuals, whether we are the philanthropic advisor or the wealth advisor or the attorney, we need to be able to, once again, go back to that old adage, if you had the magic checkbook and you could write a check for anything, what would you like to see happen? Get the dream first. For those of you who have gone through the arduous task of hearing me speak before, know that I'm always harping about menu of opportunity. High net worth households, donors of all background, want to know that we have infrastructure, that we can take their gift, no matter what size it is, and make their impact. The menu of opportunity is where we literally take our organizations and we break it down into gifting opportunities. Not necessarily naming opportunities, but where our donor can say, I'm putting money here, I'm putting money here, we're helping with this project. It gives them the feeling they're part of the family, they're making an impact, they are part of our organizations. That's why I don't talk about deduction right off the bat if I'm sitting with an individual household. I'm talking about you obviously want to see something happen. You love this organization or this group of organizations. What do we want to do there? What do we want to see happen? Ray brought that up during his discussion this morning. It is true. Talk about your mission, but not just talk at them. Ask them. Make the ask. What do you want to see happen? What is it that inspired you to sit down and have this conversation with me? If you had the magic checkbook, you'll notice, folks, that as we get into this more and more and we start talking about blending and strategy, that magic checkbook is actually there. A lot of donors, no matter their economic background, are learning that they can do more than they ever dreamed through blended giving. 55% of these donors said that they have had a charitable discussion. Sorry, you can tell I get excited about this stuff. I really have gone through puberty. They've had the discussion about charitable giving, but 51 of them said they had to initiate the conversation. So somewhere along the line in the planning team, somebody's not listening, somebody's not doing their job. That should be part of it. It should not always be about, well, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, you've become rich as creases. Now what do we do? Remember, we have a society now where we have people who look at their families and say, my children, I love them. They know I love them. I got them educated. I have fed them. I have clothed them. I got them to Disney World. Now I want to do more. Inheritance is not always the answer. Sometimes social capital is. Sometimes giving them an inheritance of the ability to have an impact on organizations and issues that are important to them is even more important than a normal inheritance. But it all becomes a reality when it's discussed. That's why we always say planned giving, even though we're gift planning. We're making sure that the plans work before they're laid out off of the drawing board and into reality. So the meaningful discussion, that has to take place no matter what. Our donors today are saying it doesn't matter to them when it happens, but it better happen. And if we don't walk away with anything this morning, that's got to be the message, that we have the meaningful conversation. What do you want to see happen, Mr. and Mrs. Donor? What do you want your children to know about your philanthropy? This is how we build generational relationships, folks. You've all heard me harp about this now on several occasions. We have to be able to say our relationship with this donor family goes back. That's pretty impressive, and guess what? Now we don't have to always worry that first business day of the new taxable year when we turn the lights on, because we have relationships that step up to plate automatically. Let's go on. I'm going to go through our normal infrastructure, but what I'd really like for us to do is think about this in terms of how do we weave this into that meaningful discussion. Question to the nonprofits, and you know I ask you all this a lot. How many of you receive a gift that you didn't know the donor, you didn't know it was coming in? It just all of a sudden appears from their personal rep, their executrix, the attorney. It's a wonderful thing. We all know that we can put those dollars to use, but we've missed some extremely important opportunity. First and foremost in my book, we didn't get to say thank you. We didn't get to tell these people what you're doing is important. Thank you for thinking enough of our organization to make this gift. We didn't get to ask them, what do they want to see happen? If they're being generous, and folks, I'm sorry, if your major gift, I don't mean this as an insult, but I think every gift is a major gift if it comes from the heart. And so when those bequests come in, especially from donors that we didn't know, we need to take some kind of responsibility for not having met them. One of the things that I talk about, use your plain giving infrastructure as an excuse. Invite people to come in and learn more about your organization, more about opportunities, how they can be a part of the family, how they can leverage their wealth to have an effect on your mission, to have their impact. And you're going to hear from people, well, you know, you're in my will, you're in my estate plan. Well, no, I didn't know. But now that I do, first, thank you. That's really incredibly nice of you. But second of all, we should get together, not because I want to start dealing and figuring out what else you have, but I want to know, what should we do? When your generous gift comes in, I want to know what I should do to make sure your charitable intent is respected. I also want to make sure that if your generous gift comes in, your family knows about it. So we should have a conversation with them right away. This is what a lot of wealthy donors are looking for. Again, folks, if you're tired, here's another reason why. Do you know that we're not only charged with handling the philanthropic component of the family, but we're now charged with teaching the next generations how to behave? Because philanthropy is how a lot of people expect their kids to learn how to be kind, generous, and good citizens. So give yourselves a break. That's why you're tired. You're not only babysitting, you're building dreams. But that bequest, great opportunity to start the conversations without even digging into how much of the estate, what percent. Let's talk about what they want to accomplish. That opens doors, folks. It truly does. Suddenly, you might have that member of your bequest society that you didn't know about asking you not only what else can I do, but how can I step this up a notch? That's a meaningful conversation. Your next questions: who's your legal advisor? Who's your tax advisor? Who is your wealth advisor or your private banker? What organizations besides mine might you want to give? Strange question, folks, especially if you're the nonprofit. No, high net worth donors love it when we work as a community. When we're not sitting there saying, oh, you're mine, and every penny of your legacy is coming to me. No, they love it when we talk about what do you want to see happen? And if my mission doesn't accomplish it, who else do you need to be involved in this conversation? You just went from that charity to a part of the family. You want to know what high net worth donors want to hear? They want to hear that you know their people and not an ATM machine. Going on. The private foundation or the donor fund, again, why bring that up? We need to know about them. We need to make sure that we know how to talk to that high net worth donor who has one of these vehicles and how they can utilize our missions to keep their vehicles in check. As long as I've been involved in philanthropy, every time someone did a brand new private foundation, they were so busy patting themselves on the back, they forgot 5% mandatory distribution. And everybody thinks that giving money away is fun and easy. It's not, because you've now gone from I just write a check to I have money that I have to give away. I have to accomplish something. So help these folks understand. We're going to go through this in a little bit to figure out who does what, but keep that in mind. Same with the donor funds. Everybody assumes that the donor fund is simple and easy because you have the parent organization there. But if you've done a donor-advised fund, you, the donor, have an obligation to work with the parent organization to get your gifts out there. The Charitable Trust, again, this is where a lot of our high net worth donors not just diversify their portfolios, but where they're using them in other areas of their planning. First and foremost, and again, you've heard me say this, if there's issues in the family, this is where we can come to the rescue and help these folks. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard, we're concerned about our child because there's a substance abuse problem. Or, I know we're going to laugh because I always say this too, but my daughter married that guy. And they don't like that guy. They're never going to like that guy. So our philanthropy can help them protect not only their daughter or their son or their grandchildren, but do it in a way where there's also a message there. Maybe we can get that guy or that lady to be more likable if they're learning more about mom and dad-in-law's philanthropy. Building family ties, transitioning wealth. We heard about that already. Ray didn't bring it up, but you know, we don't do estate planning anymore because we don't want to admit we're going to die. So we do wealth transfer. That way we're transferring our wealth for some reason and it's all for good, so we don't have to admit it's because we're checking out. Gift annuities and poor pooled income fund. When's the last time anybody heard from a pooled income fund? But the fact of the matter is, what we do comes around in circles. So one day, as people get more and more comfortable, and from my lips to God's ears, the market continues to cooperate, pooled income fund will come back. But right now, gift annuity is doing wonders. You would be surprised the number of high net worth donors who like gift annuity. It's fast, it's quick, which is fast, it's efficient, and the fact of the matter is they like the fact that they can layer. We're going to go into that in a second too, and again, think about it in terms of what do you want to see accomplished, Mr. and Mrs. Donor, and what vehicles should I be talking to you about? Insurance, we've talked about this a number of times too. Insurance can be a really effective tool, and you would think that high net worth donors wouldn't be interested, but it does give them an opportunity to leverage this kind of an asset to increase their impact and to do it comfortably, because at the end of the day, comfort is what a lot of this is about. This chart is a good thing for you to have. It was part of a presentation that was given at the National a couple of years ago, but it gives us an idea of what a high net worth donor is looking for under these various categories, where their cash could come in if they're using disposable income as opposed to their accumulated wealth, and what the level of commitment and irrevocability comes in. Say that 3 times fast in the morning. Let's look at this. You all have seen this chart a million times. This is my version of the Charitable Remainder Trust, and I'm not even going to go into this. But if you remember, I have always said, if we just do traditional planned giving, we leave money on the table. And we are development people, whether we are the attorney or whatever our role is on the planning team, we're there to accomplish a goal. We can't leave money on the table. Everything must be effective. So in this situation, when we have this couple who are doing a lovely $500,000 trust, and they're going to be accomplishing quite a bit, that pre-taxed income to the donor over time, it's a gifting opportunity. I love blended gifts. It gives us a chance to work with donors who are committed to make their current impact and to continue that impact over time until their ultimate legacy, that gift at the very end, whether that's the trust or whether it's other parts of their accumulated wealth. But we need to be there showing them how to have that impact. A quick story that I share a lot about this, but I think it is important because it demonstrates you never know where that high net worth donor is. At the very beginning of my career, I was working with a financial advisor with the company that I was with, and his client was a lady who had been a secretary at a university for her entire career, and she was getting ready to retire. And he said she really doesn't think she has any wealth, but she'd like to do something, and I looked, and she's got a $1.5 million 403B. This is a wealthy lady. She had 2 relatives, a niece and a nephew, and she had already taken care of them, but she wanted to figure out how could she do something for them, yet come up with something that really made her feel she had an impact. Hear that magic word? She wanted to have an impact. And the Charitable Remainder Trust came to the front. We talked about using the 403B upon her passing to fund a charitable remainder trust that was going to take care of her niece and nephew for a term of years she mapped out with her legal advisor and her tax advisor. And she loved the idea that a lot of that wealth she had accumulated would be able to go into something that was protective. We were hitting all of her marks. Ultimate gift. What do you want to do if you have the magic checkbook, ma'am? She wanted something established at the university that would buy office supplies across campus. Because she said, I know what it's like to reach for a paperclip and not have one. I think that is the coolest thing, truly. I've done this a lot of times, but her story always sticks with me because unassuming, didn't realize how wealthy she was, and had a dream to help other secretaries. Folks, that's what we do. We are dream makers. Let's go on. Many times, when we're working with our donors or clients, what comes up is, I love what's happening. You're going to accomplish my philanthropic dreams, but I have some concern about my children. What do I do about them? In that floor plan, anything that we give to the charitable trust is no longer ours. It does not belong to the family. The income stream can, but not the actual assets. Are my kids disinherited? Well, when you think about it, if you want to disinherit them, there's a great way to do it. But if you do love your kids, there's opportunity here. I talk about using wealth replacement, and this is where insurance comes in. A lot of times, we could utilize second to die policy in a charitable wealth replacement trust, or for the financial advisors in the room, yes, an ILET, an insurance trust. And this is outside of their taxable estate. This is the part I love, because that disposable income being generated by the charitable trust now can help pay for the life insurance, as well as continue making those current gifts to the organization or organizations they believe in. And when the death benefit's paid, it's paid to the charitable or the wealth replacement trust. So literally, either penny for penny what we gave away, or maybe even more, is outside of the taxable estate, ready to be used. That can go to the heirs, it can go to the charity, or my personal preference, let's see it combined. I want to build bridges to the next generations. I want the next generations to understand why were mom and dad so passionate about this mission or these missions. This is how we can get them engaged and also help mom and dad understand their legacy is important to everyone. It's not just financial. Going on. We always talk about appreciated assets. We might as well think about it right now. It can be things like real estate. Real estate's coming back. But if your organization is not one that necessarily needs a house or property, that might be an albatross and not a gift. If we use a charitable remainder trust, donors happy, so are we. So's your CFO. They don't have to worry about selling the property. IRA, yes, we have the charitable IRA right now, but what about utilizing the IRA assets like my friend in the university used her 403B, funding something that took care of family and then became her philanthropic dream. We can still do that, and it's a valuable planning tool. Family businesses, they can be sold through the Charitable Remainder Trust, and not only do they help set up a retirement income for mom and dad, but it also teaches the next generations why mom and dad thought these charities were important. There are messages that high net worth donors want us to help get out there. Corporate assets, legal or medical, I always share this one too, mainly because it's great to pick on my older brother. My older brother was a very successful attorney who always apparently had the call to be in the church. And I got a call from my parents saying, hey, we've got news about your brother, and they tell me he's going into the seminary, and I'm thinking, mom and dad have lost it. But he did it, and he's a member of the clergy now, and very happy. Well, a man of means. He had a very nice accumulated wealth set up, and his practice had high capital gain liability. I said, you should sell your practice through a charitable remainder trust. You will avoid the capital gain liability. You can defer taking income until it's more convenient for you. You can have an impact on the organizations you believe at, because even now, he is still making contributions to charities that he believes in. As I have said before, I'm the younger brother. What would I know? Did he do it? No. I have laughed every day since. But the fact of the matter is, this is an example of what high net worth donors should be talking about. And think about it. My brother was an attorney. So if even members of our community, our legal advisors, need to think about it, then how much more are other donors, no matter what their economic background might be? So think about other things besides tax deduction and estate planning. Think about what should the ultimate goal be from the wealth. As Ray said earlier, what are these assets going to be doing in 10, 20, 30 years? That's a good message. That's a good question for all of us to be posing. The lead trust, the poor lead trust. Once again, one of those things that we all revere, but we haven't used in a while. And of course, we always talk about the Jackie Kennedy estate. And again, this would have made a major impact. Lesson there, you've got to fund it. But people of means look at different avenues, and that's why I'm saying ultimate goal, work backwards, find the vehicle or combinations of vehicles that make those dreams come around. You all know how these work, so I'm not even going to go into it, but always be aware of the fact that even if we think the vehicle is out of fashion, our donor might not, and we should be up on it and be able to talk about it. Gift annuity, same thing here. I'm not going to harp about it, but I want to share two situations with you that I think are important because it explains what high net worth donors are thinking, what they're looking for, and why we as a planning team can make it happen. I've shared this one with the council a number of times, but I think the message is important. I'd like to share it again. Working with a university on the East Coast, they were having the obligatory black tie event for their capital campaign. Ugh, I hate black tie events. They're not only high overhead, but I always have to worry if I can still fit into my tuxedo. That'll be in my book. But the most important about this one is the fact that during this event, a gentleman took the podium and said, my wife and I would like to give $500,000 to the campaign. And of course, the room goes wild. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. It happens. So the room goes wild. Next morning, I think the Chardonnay wore off. But the fact of the matter is, we now had somebody who was feeling uncomfortable. They didn't think just writing a check for $500,000 was going to be something they could do. Their wealth advisor didn't necessarily feel like sending over $500,000 of the portfolio directly was in their best interest. They were in a quandary. And let's make it even more fun, especially for those of you in higher ed. This donor and his wife, best friends of the university president and his wife. So they were basically saying, don't embarrass my friends. We all know we have an ethical obligation to our donors, especially in a capital campaign. If somebody says, I'm going to make this pledge, I'm going to see it through, we have to make sure that they do. And it's not something that I think we want to sweep under the carpet. And let's be honest, folks, if you get up in a ballroom and tell a ballroom full of people that you're going to make a commitment, that's not something you can sweep under the carpet. So that's where this came in. We were talking to them about how can we make your dream of $500,000 come true? What is a comfortable way of doing it? Team approach. We talked about different plan giving instruments, but this one resonated. They liked the idea that maybe instead of doing one big $500,000, because that was still worrying them, doing it in increments and in different CGA contracts was comfortable, and it was a reality for them. And what we did, and this is something I suggest too, gift agreement. Now, attorneys, We all know that a gift agreement is a handshake on paper, but to a donor, it adds stability. It's concrete. They realize that they've made a commitment, and they are empowered now to fulfill that commitment. Every other distribution, they were quarterly distributions, every other one was scheduled to go to the university to help pay off the campaign pledge. Everybody was happy. CFO's happy because this is all irrevocable, so they know the income will be coming in. President of the university happy because Friend is no longer embarrassed. In fact, Friend is thrilled. Development's happy because the university president is off their back. Lastly, the donors were happy because they felt like they were making an impact. It was something that was comfortable for them. It proved that they were accomplishing things from a wealth standpoint because they were making a $500,000 gift, and it was something that they could share with their kids and say, look what we're doing. So much so was this comfort zone that they kicked it up a notch, another $50,000. Do they all work like that? No. But the fact of the matter is, having these kinds of strategies in our heads, ready to share them, means that we're not doing cookie cutter approach. We are finding options and opportunities for people to have their impact. That is what the high net worth donor wants. Going on. I said we were going to talk about these, and let's bring them up. I know we have to think in terms of finance when it comes to like the private foundation, because a $50,000 or $100,000 private foundation is not going to accomplish a great deal. And we're talking about having impact. We're also talking about donors who could think about major impacts, so they're probably not thinking in those particular financial terms. So what I want to know now is, how involved does the family want to be? Do they want to be making these kinds of decisions about custody of the asset, about the investment management? This isn't just about now their risk tolerance. They have to think in terms of being a charity. So they have to think in terms of MIFA and prudent investor, and it can get pretty heady, which is why I always leave all of it to my colleagues who do investment, and I can sit there and smile and look like I'm smart. End of story. Organizational management. Do they have their guidelines? Do they have their policies and procedures in place so that that foundation, even though it's a private foundation, is functioning like our organizations, like businesses, and it's going to have an impact? Grant management. I've said it before and I will say it again. People think that giving money away is simple and easy and it's always fun. I can tell you in the years that I've been doing this, when I have had high net worth individuals or households set up their private foundation, a number of times I was sweating bullets because we were coming up to the anniversary date and they hadn't made a grant. And you know, our friends at the IRS, see, this is where I can get into trouble, so there better not be any registered agents. Our friends at the IRS are not going to say, oh, don't worry about it. You'll make a grant. It'll happen someday. Don't fret. No, they're going to be saying, what did you do this year? Show me your impact. Show me where you met your contractual obligation to this organization you've created. So there can be a lot of responsibility that people don't think about, even if your foundation is done under trust. So I want to know, how committed is the donor and their family? How involved do they want to be? If they can't say, we're in this for 100%, then let's talk about a donor fund. We still have to be involved. We still have to have an obligation. But we have a parent organization that can help us with things like the organization, the grant making, finding out the right organizations and issues that truly reflect who we are and what we want to do. So I'm looking at, once again, if you had the magic checkbook, what would you accomplish? When would you do it? How long do you want to continue doing it? we're kind of running out of time here, so I'm going to speed it up. And this is always my favorite part of any presentation, the summary, because it means we're going to get to lunch. First and foremost, today's donor wants options in achieving their goals. You've heard it in every presentation, so this is not news for me. 71% of that wealthy donor that they were profiling said that they want to make their gifts in an organized fashion. They want their major gift to have an impact, and they want help doing it. That's what we're here for. They don't want to necessarily hear about the tax or the structure right away. They first want to know about impact and work backwards to figure the rest of those things out. It'll almost fall into place magically. The result is they are looking at donor funds, foundations, charitable gift annuity, charitable trust, all the things that we do on a daily basis, or we know how to work together to see happen. This is an important statement right here, folks. And again, if we don't think of anything from today, please think about this. I don't care if you're the philanthropic component, the legal component, the tax component. I don't care what your role is on the planning team. But your donor, your client, whatever you choose to call them, if they're not hearing, if they're not getting from you what they want, they will go somewhere else. You could lose a client, you could lose a donor. They want to know you're there with them 100%, or else they'll seek an alternative. That's the kind of society that we're working with. Should we be afraid? No, maybe a little apprehensive, maybe ready to step up to plate at all times, but not afraid. Action steps. Please, think of the team approach. You don't have to be the Lone Ranger, and silver bullets are not popular right now. Just ask anybody. Fact of the matter is, when you have your colleagues with you, not only can you be more comfortable, because whatever you might not hear, or maybe whatever you might have said, they can do for you. Pick somebody who's going to be the liaison, the person who maybe has a stronger connection or has created a stronger comfort zone with that donor or client. It doesn't mean that your relationship is being challenged or is less important, but somehow you need someone who really can get the messages going and bring the information back. Work as a team and you will have more success. I promise you that. Documentation. Again, having a second set of eyes, whether it was a CGA contract that came out of PG Calc or Crescendo, or whether it's a customized document prepared by the legal community. Second set of eyes never hurts, just to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. We are accomplishing dreams, folks, and we don't want the dream to become a nightmare because the smallest little detail was forgotten or overlooked. Work as a team. Make sure we know. And you know, the reason I bring that up is if you think about the horror stories that we have read about in the trades, like the Chronicle of Philanthropy, where not the donor necessarily, but the next generation comes up and says, the charity took my inheritance. That happened because of details, communication. We can easily avoid that by making sure that we always know what the charitable intent is, what the motivation was, and be able to make sure our donor or client can reiterate it to the letter, and I love it in writing. If it's in writing, as Ray said this morning, it's pretty hard for a judge or a mediator to say, oh, there's obviously something wrong here. No, clearly direction has been given. Follow the directions. And finally, something that, again, pure common sense, but we need to thank our donor and we need to remind them to enjoy what they've done. This is a reflection of who they are, what they've accomplished in their lifetime, who their family is, why the family should continue to carry on the torch. This is important stuff. It's a celebration of our donors and our clients. Let's make it a happy celebration. All of you who have heard me babble on before know that I always love to close with this quote because I think it really does reflect what we do. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And no, folks, Winston Churchill did not say it. I was terribly disappointed when I heard that because I felt like he should have said it. But you know what? I realized something that's probably more important. We should say it. We should say it every day. Our donors, our clients, they should say it because it is true. We have an impact by what we have accomplished, by what we have gathered, by what we want to share with the needs and those that are not as fortunate. So let's help people get out there and make a life by what they give, so that next time that we look at a pie chart, not only are all of those slices growing, but our impact is growing and our donors become the best marketing tools anybody could ask for because they will get out and talk. And now I would like to give you the rest of your day back so that you can enjoy lunch and the rest of our speakers. Thank you so much for letting me finally make it to the big room and become the Wayne Newton of philanthropy. Dankeschön.
Thanks, Chris. I knew we were in for a treat, and Chris delivered as usual. By the way, I did check with Rob McGregor. Next time we're going to have you sing your presentation. And there's also no truth to the rumor that Chris was moonlighting as a hot dog vendor at Comerica Park. But just want to make that sure if you've ever heard that guy sing about the hot dogs. We're ready for lunch. I did want to say a big thank you to PNC and their institutional investments team for sponsorship, and individually to Chris Kelly. Not only is he speaking, but as a sponsor today. So again, let's give them a big thank you. And with that, lunch is served. I think Rob McGregor will be up in a few minutes to give some remarks. But Lori, are we good right now to go ahead with lunch? Yes, we're good. So have at it. Thank you.
Let's eat. Go ahead, I'll watch the table.